Court accordingly enters judgment of not guilty, reluctantly. I do hope that you will take the opportunity to get the counseling that you need, to get the counseling for the children that you need, that you learn from this behavior, and hopefully the rest of the community learns from this behavior, that you cannot go out and party on the weekend.
Indianapolis mother who admitted to fatally taking the life of her baby while high on methamphetamines became overwhelmed and hit her face and her hands when a controversial judge allowed her to walk free. Tia Lacey, age 32, was found not guilty of neglect of the dependent, resulting in the 2022 deceasement of her daughter, Alona, by Judge Mark Stoner, who was already facing calls to resign after giving a mentally ill man who fatally took the life of a police officer a sentence of time served. The mom was cleared even though the judge told her it was a case that happens when you're a bad parent.
And Dustin, this was a bench trial here that lasted 3 days at the Community Justice Campus, and that means that the judge heard all the evidence, there was no jury, and the judge decides the verdict. And Judge Mark Stoner ruled within the last hour that Daisha Lacey did not commit a criminal act of neglect that resulted in her 2-month-old baby's death. Lacey allegedly admitted in a police interview that she smothered her child while she was high on meth and tired.
Quote, "There are some things you can never do. You can never have sole possession of your child and go out and use drugs. You're not innocent, but you're not guilty of what the state has charged you with." Lacey, who faced up to 40 years in prison if convicted, dropped her head as Stoner told her that he found her not guilty in the bench trial. The mom, wearing a bright yellow prison suit, looked up and squinted her eyes shut as if to stop tears before she placed her hands in her head.
Put a pillow on the baby's face to make her stop crying. Lacey's other daughter, who was only 3 at the time, testified that she saw her mom put a pillow on her baby's face. But there was no medical or physical evidence presented at trial to show that the baby was smothered or that she died from suffocation. The judge said that the charges were not appropriate in this case.
The judge stated that there was no evidence to prove the charge Lacey was facing, neglect of the dependent resulting in death. Quote, "Not everything that's a mistake or everything that is wrong is criminal." He later stated, "Something has to be done with criminal intent, criminal responsibility, and that's what the defendant is charged with. When the state chooses to charge an individual, they must prove that they did something with criminal intent. Poor parenting, by definition, is not criminal."
Toxicology report did show meth in Daisha Lacey's system, but Judge Mark Stoner said if she had been charged with reckless homicide or involuntary manslaughter, he could have found her guilty. But she's not guilty of neglect of the dependent resulting in death. Daisha Lacey has been in jail for a little over a year since her arrest in this case. She will be free later today.
Stated there was no signs of neglect of a dependent, like broken bones or other injuries, that would signify long-time abuse. The pathologist, who was unable to provide a cause or manner of death of the child. Quote, "It's important to understand that the prosecutor chose the charges. It's the prosecutor that elected. The prosecutor has a screening division to make decisions as to what should be charged." Court records show that Lacey gave police a lengthy confession detailing through tears how she smothered her daughter because she was high on narcotics and wanted her to stop crying so she could get some sleep. During the trial, investigators learned that Lacey's other daughter, who was 3 at the time of Alona's deceasement, witnessed her mother taking a pillow and smothering the baby. Toxicology reports show that methamphetamine in Lacey's system the day her baby passed. Again, I just want to start off by saying my condolences to the family of the little girl. She didn't even get a chance to even experience life, to even, really walk directly on this plane of existence before returning to the existence she was in prior. My condolences to the young girl who had to stand and testify, and, give a reaccount of what it is that her mother did, that child is going to need therapy. That child is going to remember that forever. That's going to have a very deep psychological impact on that child. And I want to also note that nobody during the trial stated, or even in the article, that that little girl is going to need therapy. She is going to, need to see somebody for quite some time in order to be able to deal with the situation, so that she, at a certain point in time in her life, she won't look back and feel as though she is to blame, as if she should have protected, as if she should have, did more, as if, if maybe she was just stronger, if maybe she was just a little. She's going to need a lot of therapy. A lot of therapy. One of the things that I've stated to people before is that as time goes by, and due to the effect of lack of accountability that is taking place, you're going to start to see more and more women committing more and more crimes, more and more atrocities, right? The same exact things that people have normally stated when it deals with men, how, men are just always criminal minded. They're always doing the worst things. They're always doing these unspeakable things, yada, 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 right? But at the end of the day, more times than not, men are made to be accountable for the actions that they commit against another living, breathing person. But time and time, as I've covered these stories, I've seen a lot of women go scot-free with really nothing, any type of time or anything, when it deals with them doing the exact same thing, if not worse. And somebody has to explain that to me. Because as I can reaccount, people have always stated, again, men are the worst of the worst. Men are the only ones that can have the conscience enough to, do such violent and horrendous things to a whole nother human being, because they just don't care about life. So somebody has to explain to me, without trying to excuse or give excuses such as, oh, she had PTSD. Nobody knows what a mother has to go through with chemical, whatnot or whatever, in the female body, and her being pregnant and this, that, and the third and all this. I'm not trying to hear all that. I'm not giving any of those excuses to what this mother did. She decided to be hooked on whatever narcotics on top of getting pregnant, not once, but twice. She made that decision. She also made that decision while having those kids, while also knowing the fact that she's an addict. She decided that she was the best one to take care of them. She could have easily handed them off to the parents. She could have gave them to family. She could have gave them to whoever, the man or the men are. She could have gave them over to that family, and she could have let her life be her life and do whatever it is that she wants to do with her body. But she opted to do all of these things when she knew that she was not in the right sound of mind, because she is an addict. In no way, shape, or form was this woman at any point in time possible or logical in any type of discernment or line of thinking to be able to properly take care and manage the well-being and the life of a child. Realistically, how those two girls even survived in that household is beyond me. How she's even facilitating funds in order to buy any of these narcotics off of the streets is beyond me. How it is that nobody in the courts stated that, hey, maybe we should have CPS or whoever come through and really assess and look at the situation is beyond me. But then I have people in the comment sections every now and again, whenever I happen to bring up stories like this, and I consistently state that adults don't care about the kids, want to try to tell me something different. But here I am again, looking at this story, and I'm commonly telling you, as I've stated every single time before this video, adults don't care about the kids. The DA failed. Her own lawyers failed for even trying to sit up there and defend her. The mother failed. The system failed. The police failed. CPS failed. All of those are adults. They failed. As I've stated before, the main ways that you can try to at least try to put a halt or stop directly on these types of things, if people from those said communities would go and do more to stop these things from happening, create harsher laws and or penalties when things like this take place, and also for people to bring awareness, right? I, as a man, I bring awareness to whatever it is or the different crimes that men just so happen to commit. There needs to be somebody directly on the other side who is a woman who is going to spend time and energy to bring awareness to these types of things, as to showcase and to call out these things so that this does not become a bigger situation. And this is something that I've talked about time and time and time over the years, that this is going to be larger and larger and larger because it's going left unchecked. Nobody wants to really focus on it. People really aren't calling it out because the only thing that people want to focus on is men bad, men bad, men bad, women good. That's it. So the moment in time that you keep having that narrative, people keep trying to draw that line, that's when more and more things like this, stories like this, will continuously happen, and you will continuously have the loss of life of children, which should not even happen at all, especially by the hands of the person that gave birth to them.